But here's the facts. Like when a child is emotionally upset, they're coming in with high cortisol. When cortisol is up, which is your fight, flight, or freeze response, memory and focus is down.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to ADHD Eavesdrop, where you can be a butterfly on the wall and listen in on my conversations. Today, my guest is Riana Milne, and Riana's been featured in Forbes, New York Weekly, Disrupt, Influencer Daily, Women's Journal, and Wealth Insider magazines, and was selected as one of the 100 most successful women around the world by the Global Trade Chamber. She's a certified life, love, trauma, recovery, and mindset coach, an advanced certified clinical trauma professional, and a #1 best-selling author of her book, Live and Love Beyond Your Dreams, the host of her own podcast called Lessons in Life and Love, and a licensed mental health counselor for over 25 years, living in Palm Beach County, Florida. Riana specializes in helping adults overcome both childhood and love relationship trauma, using telemedicine or counseling in Florida and coaching globally to help singles and couples to create the life they desire and have the love they deserve, using her Mindset for Success system, which she has been teaching for over 40 years. Her website is rianamilne.com. Check her out. So I'm so excited to have you here today, Riana.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you. We both have an educational background, which is always exciting to me. I spent 30 plus years in education, special education, some of it administration, central office administration and such. So education is one of my, well, it is my first love, I would say, when it comes to career. So I'm just so excited to hear you talk about what you've done working with kids, especially with ADHD. And I know you've worked with trauma, you've done all kinds of other things, and I want to get deeply into that too. But let's bounce with the ADHD kiddos first.
Sure, sure. Well, I worked in every grade level of schools from kindergarten all the way through college. So it was quite a large population, um, and different areas like Hackensack High School and Atlantic City area. So some tough populations in the schools. And I was a little bit known as the woo-woo counselor. I came in and did a lot of holistic approaches to helping kids because by the time I was working in the elementary school, I had done my trauma research. And I did find in my research that childhood trauma shows a lot of signs of ADHD.
Mhm.
So I saw that a lot of teachers or parents were quick to say, they have ADHD, put them on drugs. And I said, wait a minute, let's try a little bit of behavior modification. Let me do a little bit of counseling work and coaching for this child before trying that route. You know, everything let's try holistically first, mind, body, and spirit. But for the little ones, like I was doing meditation in Miss Rihanna's relaxation room, is what my office was called.
Love it.
And we did music therapy. So, music therapy, one of the songs that my kids tended to like best in elementary school was music from Louis Miguel. Now, he's a Spanish singer, and I don't even speak Spanish, but my kids loved it. And it actually, some music does hit the alpha brain waves of the brain and just calms everything down. So between Mr. Louis, they would call him. They're like, Miss Rihanna, we put Mr. Louis on. I'm like, did you have a bad morning? Yes, I need Mr. Louis today. So we would play his music and then do some meditation, which was deep breathing and quiet. I did not have any of the bright lights on in my office. I had only table lamps and a soft rug that we could sit on. So they would be grounded and sit and feel comfortable with music and then deep breathing. We also did a lot of behavior modification. So I had these, what I call star charts, all over my office walls. Like any child that was sent to me, we'd fill out a star chart. And their teachers, depending on how many issues were going on with that student, they would either come to me 3 times a day, morning, after recess, and then at the end of the day, or just after recess, if that's where the troubles were occurring, or once a day at the end of the day. As they were doing better, they'd come in at the end of the day and they would have a comment on their notebook and they would show it to me. So if they had a good comment, they got a star, then they got to peel off a star and put it on their star chart. And when they got a full column across, I could go in my treasure chest and pick out a reward. Once the whole chart was filled out, they could choose four things. So at first, this is what we call extrinsic awards, right? So the kid's like, yeah, I want a new ruler. I want a new pencil. I want a shiny pencil sharpener, you know? So these little things that they would get very excited about. But what was happening over time was what we call intrinsic awards. They felt better about themselves. They were calmer. They were more focused. They weren't such a nudge to the teachers that the teachers liked them more. And then they were making more friendships. So, of course, we would talk about what the problems were, how to make friends better on the recess, or nobody's playing with me. So I steal the ball so I can play too. Well, that's not how you ask to play, So teaching them behavioral skills and social skills, as well as giving them rewards when they have the courage to try something new. And then they see that works. So it was all this in conglomerate that we could get change within my elementary school kids. And that worked out really, really well.
Well, it sounds like you are somebody I would have loved to have had on my staff.
I love my principal. She's there. You do whatever you want. I love what you're doing. It's working. So, yeah.
And I remember, I don't know how long you were in education, but I remember wanting to use some of those techniques because I worked with severely emotionally impaired students when I first started, especially in my career, and wanting to use breathing techniques, meditation, all those things. And at that time, they said I couldn't do it because it was teaching Eastern religion techniques.
Yeah, my years in the elementary school I was referring to, which is Southern New Jersey, was 2004 to 2008. And I was called a SAC counselor, student assistance counselor. But I saw all the emotionally upset kids, the ADHD kids, the oppositional defiant, the bullies or the bullied kids, the kids that were too afraid to come to school. When I went into that little school, it was a war zone. And within a month and a half, everything changed. So I was also teaching character ed. I asked if I could do a special class a month, and we had theme of the month. We did Red Ribbon, which was teaching around drugs and alcohol. And I just said, if you're concerned about any drug and alcohol use in your families, just come and talk to me. Just sign up. This is Miss Riana's list. And my principal's there. You maybe get 10, 15. I got 245 kids.
Wow,
More than half.
Rihanna.
Yeah. So if you know there's drug and alcohol use in the family and there's a lot of yelling and screaming, these kids are coming into the school emotionally upset or tired. I had one kid say, yeah, my mom is a dancer and she doesn't come home all night. I have to get myself up and eat and come to school on time to get out on the bus, or I'll get in trouble if I'm not at school. It's
Yeah.
like, self-sufficient kids. And then it was my role to call DIFUS, Division of Youth and Family Services, if indeed I felt, they needed some more support. And many, many calls were made. So that was just part of my responsibility. But once we could have the child talking, it was more like, would you like to get more help for mom or more help for mom and dad? They may not be happy about that, but in the long run, it's going to help. And you've empowered yourself to help the family. And they usually said yes.
Now, did
Um,
you spend the bulk of your time in elementary?
I was at Atlantic City High School. I was at Hackensack High School, which is North Jersey. So there I saw kids from the Crips and the Bloods, the gangs. I had one student there that went home on a Friday, and her mom was in Jamaica and didn't speak any English. The father met a young woman who didn't like that he had a teen girl. So she comes home from school. They moved out everything except her bedroom and a few things left of food. They moved out on her and with no note. So she comes in Monday morning, Miss Rihanna, my family moved out on me. I'm like, what do you mean? So again, I had to jump into action and get this student. I had all the seniors rally around her and bring in cosmetics and things that she would need to live on until I could place her in a home where she could still go to school So it'd be something close by that would take a 16-year-old. So that was a lot of work. I worked with, an attorney immediately to get her placed. And the shelters are, well, we need mom or dad to sign her in. I'm like, no, you're not hearing me. There is no mom or dad to sign her in. I'll sign in for her if I may. But we had to have the attorneys handle it. But you never know what you're going to get. But when it
You
comes
really don't.
science, and the little ones, so many were just said they're ADHD, like let's just give them medication and calm them down. But here's the facts. Like when a child is emotionally upset, they're coming in with high cortisol. When cortisol is up, which is your fight, flight, or freeze response, memory and focus is down. So they had a screaming match in the morning, or dad hit mom, and they're coming in and they're all alert, like all hyper because the cortisol's up, and the teacher's there, he's just looking out the window. He's absent, he's blank. Well, it's not because he has ADHD, it's because he's so traumatized.
Hmm.
So I have to get the trauma within the body system and the brain calmed down. So that's what I was doing in my office with meditation. Yeah, everyone thought that was a little weird. And then I had teachers, when the kids were coming in, play music in their rooms. Like one day was like dance music day. That was Friday. And then we'd have jazz day. That was Monday. Start them off with something mellow, jazzy. So Monday morning, you know.
Nice. I love
And then
it.
Latin day was Tuesday. And, so we'd have a different music day. But the teachers liked it and the kids liked it. There's something to look forward to. So, we did these little behavior modification things, but they really, really worked. And that was great. And all the brain science does prove that, the impacts of childhood trauma, there's seven of them, and there's seven life areas that are impacted. But for children in particular, with under cognition is one of the seven areas. It's impaired readiness to learn, language delays, problems with concentration, poor academic achievement, and difficulty problem solving. That's your math and reading, right? So the kids that are slow in math and reading, we have to look deeper than just putting a label on it of ADHD, like getting them the counseling services they need, but not just the guidance counselor does not know mental health. Most of the guidance counselors do not have that background like the mental health counselors do.
Right.
And then on top of that, CCTP, which is Certified Clinical Trauma Professional Advanced Level. So I'm recognizing the trauma, and I have these trauma modification skills that they can learn and do and practice that really work. And that's every school should have one of us. Everyone, before the football coach is
I
hired,
agree.
we should have, a trauma specialist counselor, mental health counselor in the school for these kids because they need it. It's sad, but
I too taught in a very rural or urban area, and we had a lot of the same things that you're talking about. And when you work with kids with ADHD and you work with kids with trauma, they can look so similar, and it
Mhm.
can be really hard to tell the difference. And so the nuances of those two different things are sometimes hard to separate. And some
Yeah,
kids who have ADHD to start end up being traumatized because they're ADHD. And then then is it ADHD or trauma? And so you have the chicken before the egg or whatever. But I feel like trauma and ADHD walk hand in hand.
yeah, absolutely. For the parents that agreed, I had a fabulous Asian holistic health doctor who also owned a pharmacy, all holistic health pharmacy. And the parents would go in at no charge, and he was willing to walk them around, give them, a couple assessments, say, get a summary of what I saw, walk the child and the parent around, and get them holistic medication, vitamins, really, to
Right.
help, and tell the parent, don't let them have red dye, don't let them have sugar, these kinds of diet changes. And the kids were changing within a month.
Mhm.
Amazing. So the ones that used Dr. Chang was fabulous. They loved it and they loved the changes. I would also teach some behavioral modification things in the household, like every light should be on a dimmer, nothing bright. At dinner, have calm music going on, like really in the background, but soft music when the child's coming home from school and maybe again at dinner. Routine, really good routine, enough sleep, at least 8 hours, 9 if you can for a child. Um, and then also talking to the parents, is there conflict within your home? So I had to do family systems counseling for them, or communication skills for the parents. A lot of the parents, some of them were so abusive that they didn't want to come in. They're hoping nobody knows what's going on in their household. Or only mom would come, dad would refuse. So I could help her, in some ways help her and her child. So it's very difficult working in the schools with the rules. They're even worse now. I mean, we were free to be able to help that child the best that we could. That is a job as a therapist.
Mhm.
But, I mean, the trauma can happen as soon as in utero, right? So if the mother is being battered and she turns to drinking just to calm down, this baby is already having a slow start because trauma does impact smaller brain size, less efficient processing of that child when it's born. The startle stress response is higher in that baby. And it's even proven in trauma studies to have changed gene expression. So the survivors of the Holocaust, their offspring, are much higher anxiety folks due to what they endured in the concentration camp.
So is
So,
that what they call generational trauma?
yeah, yeah. So it goes through at least 3 generations. And in the 2021 studies of trauma, it says 100% of us have at least the top 10 traumas that I came up with on my childhood trauma list. It's very easy to understand and it's free on my website, which is rianamilne.com under quiz. So if you can't write it down, what are the top traumas, you can certainly go in
I'll
there.
also link it in our details.
Yeah, so it's important that you know what they are. If you are a mom and you're listening to this and you're recognizing that you had trauma, again, your parents had trauma, and if you're going through something with your partner, certainly then your child is now being impacted. So the more we can educate ourselves, whenever I get a client that works with me, let's say it's a single mom and she had a tough husband, she's going through the divorce, once out. Now she wants to meet somebody emotionally healthy. She comes to me as a dating coach, and I always say, well, how are the children? So very often I will help the kids as part of her coaching program and also teach her what she needs to do in the home or to work with the school since I sat on child study team and IRNS. And then at Hackensack, I was a school psychologist under emergency status. So, I've played all those roles so I can help a parent to empower themselves when it comes to the schools and what they should be asking for. So I look at the whole family because we have to have a happy mom to have a happy child, and if parents are in conflict, then it's best I meet with them as a couple. If one parent won't come, I will work with the one that does come. So somebody gets started, and let's help you and then help your child become more confident and, more intelligent by the ways that you teach them. And also, I teach mindset work, mindset for success. And it's funny, I'm sure you know the movie The Secret,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I asked my principal, who's very, very cool, if I could show that movie. And it was little on the edge of, is it religion or is it spirituality? But she loved everything I was teaching. And I developed a program called Stand Up for Friendship, but I'll tell you about that in a second. So I asked her if I could do the Secret movie. And she goes, I think it's a wonderful movie. Go for it. Let's see what the response is. Start with the fifth graders. They loved it. So the mindset is, if you're thinking a bad thought, cap and correct it with something positive. You have to think good of yourself. So many of these kids are hearing, you're not smart, you can't get this, you can't do this, all these negative messages or whatever the bullies were saying, you're ugly, or, it happens at the youngest of grades.
Oh, it sure does.
You know, getting them to have the mindset to correct that and do their own affirmations and to, everyone needs sound ego, right? To feel good about themselves. So they would learn techniques, and this movie just reinforced that. What you think about comes about. What you believe, you'll achieve. If you believe you'll get an A, you're going to get an A. So I broke it down, the messages to their level, and they loved it. And they excelled even more. So she goes, show it to all the kids in character ed class. Just teach it on their levels. So that was something else that I used that was really great. And then I developed a talent club, and that was for the fourth and fifth graders. And when I first went there, there was a lot of detentions and suspensions. And usually the bad kids were the best singers, rappers, dancers. So I used to be a model and talent agent. And my daughter sings on 3 multi-platinum CDs at the time with one of the top hip hop artists that all those kids knew. And Miss Riana had a picture with that artist. And they're like, Miss Riana, you know him? How do you know him? It's like, my daughter sings with him. How does that happen? Because I'm a talent agent. So on top of that, I've done that for years. So we made the kids audition as if it were a proper, talent show. And they had to get in, but here was the rule. You get a detention or suspension, you're out.
Mhm.
Said whoever makes the show, you have to dress the part, you have to prepare it. It has to be less than 3 minutes. So they had a month to prepare. And I said, and who makes it will be in the newspaper and I'll get you on TV. And I did. So now the bad kids, quote unquote, became the leaders and the heroes of the school, because they could sing and they could dance. And I said, you have a very important role. All these kids are looking up to you because you're on the stage and you're performing, and that's neat. So all those kids turned around and became leaders.
Mhm.
So there's so many cool things. And then Stand Up for Friendship was another program to help the kids that were traumatized by bullying. And it was you pair up with one person, and that's your bully busting buddy. So if someone tries to bully you, you try to step in, like, don't, guys, don't fight, try and get along. Do you want to go to Miss Rihanna's and talk it out? That was step one. And step two, if they wouldn't leave him alone, he would come to me and say, Miss Rihanna, Jimmy's picking on Stevie out at recess. I tried to do this and that, but it didn't work. It's like, thank you for telling me. You did a great job of watching out for me, and let's bring them in. And then they would sit and negotiate through their differences.
Nice.
Yeah. So what did you want and what did you want and how can we make this happen? And they learned the art of negotiation. And they even learned to say that word. You know, we're going to do the art of negotiation. What's that? It's something you're going to use when you're adults if you don't get along. You're just going to
Absolutely.
state your point of view and talk it out. So these
I'm
programs,
really
well,
I'm really curious, Rihanna, what brought you to trauma? Because I can see your passion for it. What
yeah.
brought you there?
Well, I had everyone experiences childhood trauma, right? 100% of us, and some things stand out more. Like I was definitely bullied. Um, there's verbal messaging, which is trauma number 2 of 10. Like, what did you hear when you grew up? Did you hear, I'm proud of you, or great job, and I love you? Those were things I didn't hear. I was never good enough, or not as good as this person, or you got to do better. It was always those messages. And how did your parents fight when they had an issue? Did they discuss it calmly or were they yelling at each other? Right? Okay. And then the bullying, I knew I had that one, but that wasn't it. It was, I lost my best childhood friend to a drunk driver when we were 16. He was killed. So I wanted to go to a counselor, and my mom said, no one in this family will ever go to counseling. And I said, then I will grow up and become one, because sometimes kids need help, you know? So I just started reading the masters like Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and Dalai Lama, Marianne Williamson, learned the Course of Miracles, learning mindset. And then I went to Penn State for broadcast communications. And my best friend and college roommate, I was one year ahead of her, But when I left, she was with a very toxic boyfriend, and I was able to get her away from him. But once I left, she went back and she ends up being murdered. So at that point, I dedicated one part of my life to helping those with addiction. So I'm an addictions counselor and help people of domestic violence or trauma. And we call that love trauma. And then I had a love trauma, and I'm like, why did I pick this person? And I then discovered the top 10 traumas. And I recognized that I had three or four of them. And I'm like, okay, well, because I had this, I'm choosing someone who's like this. So someone with love childhood trauma that's not healed definitely will choose someone with love trauma and create love trauma. So, and the partner had chosen say, I don't know why I sabotage everything I love. And I said, I don't know either, but I'm going to figure it out. And by then, I had a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology, but we never heard the term childhood trauma. Not once. We
Hmm.
heard attachment disorders, things that aren't realistic. This is realistic and nobody's talking about it. So that's when I developed the childhood trauma checklist in 2012, started using it with my clients. I could help them heal so much faster when I could diagnose what happened as children and what's happening in their life now in life, love, or business. And then because of that, put the puzzle pieces together, teach them what I learned about trauma healing, and they would be like totally transformed, like total transformation. So I was with singles, couples, straight, LGBTQ clients, men, women, young, old, didn't matter.
Work with all of them, huh?
Yeah, yeah. For real, because my background was just all over the place. I worked in a mental health ward for kids age 5 through 19. So I had the kids that were self-cutting, self-mutilating, suicidal, runaways, drug and alcohol kids. I worked in a teen drug and alcohol facility. I worked in a woman's drug and alcohol facility. They were all from prison. They were in drug court. So these were very tough ladies, 16 to 65. But no matter their background, race, culture, economic status, these top 10 traumas always kept showing up. And that's how I got my top 10 list for traumas.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
So,
would love to talk, like, we could probably do one episode just on the 10 trauma.
yeah.
So- but we are already really close to the end of our time together, and I want to give you one more chance. I want to give you, I always ask my new people one question, and it's not always the same, but I have a very specific question for you because I think that you have some really intense knowledge to drop on us here. What would your advice be to somebody who knows that they're dealing with childhood traumas, but they don't know what to do with it?
We're talking like an adult knows
Mhm.
they still have their childhood trauma. Okay. Or even if they know their children have it
Even
as
if you have a high school kid who knows that they're dealing with trauma.
well. Yeah. I work with 16 and up. Uh,
Okay, so yeah, like you have a college kid. Like we're gonna give you the college kid. The college kid is like, I think I have some childhood trauma and
yeah.
it's messing with me. What do I do?
Yeah, usually it's a parent that would reach out to me because the kid is struggling, or they're on ADHD meds or abusing it or addicted to it. I've seen that constantly in college kids. They're, snorting it, they're crashing it up and snorting it. And now
And
they
then the
become.
ones who need to be taking it aren't taking it at all.
Yeah. So, I said, let's try everything holistically first. Let's raise your self-esteem. Let's do meditation, which is proven in science to lower the cortisol, fight, flight, or freeze, anxiety, depression, and blood pressure, and increase focus, dopamine and serotonin levels of the brain, which are the high and happy chemicals. There's vitamins that I recommend. That's all natural for anxiety and depression. They don't need the pharmaceuticals. Okay, so we do everything holistically first. Look at the diet. What are they eating? What are they consuming? What is their sleep schedule like? Everything holistically. And then we start going with goal setting. What is it they want to do? Some kids are in college like lost. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm flunking out and I hate it and I'm not good at this and my mom wants me to go for this and that's why I'm in here. And then it's like, well, what do you want to do? Let's talk about that, and really get them going, into the future vision of what they want for their life. So really self-empowering them, raising their confidence or self-esteem, learning to communicate. A lot of these kids were so stuck in the screens, they don't know how to communicate for themselves. So that's what I would do for a young person. For an adult who's out of college and lost, let's get you going and figuring out what direction you do want to do. I do help people build their businesses because I've had, 15 coaches help me grow mine to international. So I've had the best of the best, and you don't have to pay the type of money I did, but I will teach you what you need to know under the topics that you need to launch a business online. But yeah, the first thing they would do is come to my website. It's rianamilne.com. And right on the homepage is a big orange button for a life and love transformation session. Now that you meet 2 hours with me in private on Zoom, just like this, and they do the childhood trauma checklist and 4 other simple assessments, very easy to understand from what they tell me and the questions I ask, and I can then develop a blueprint as far as what would help them best. Some people need 6 months to work with me, some only four, some maybe only a few sessions. Some may need a personal transformation course, like that's great for college and high school kids, where someone may be 65 and college graduate, successful in business, struggles in love, had three toxic relationships, can't figure out what I'm doing wrong, and I want someone to retire with. So the oldest person I worked with was 83. So there is no limit here. There's no limits to anyone. Anyone can use and benefit from this work. It's amazing. I think that's what I like best about it. Everyone is their own individual puzzle. It's up to me to get the information that I need from them to help and devise a program that's going to work specifically for them. So it's very customized and personalized. On my website, though, while you're there, go under quizzes. There's four of them. Take those for free. And on the homepage is a free ebook, How to Have the Love You Deserve. If you're curious how this works for a teenager, scroll all the way down and listen to Amy's tape. She was sent to me from Texas, from her mom that knew she was struggling in college. And she goes, she's a smart kid, but she's getting C's and she's working at a fast food chain as a host and dating a 30-year-old dishwasher. It's like, we got to get her out of there. Okay. We will get her out of there. So by the time I was done, she had gotten accepted to a large university. She knew she wanted to be an architect, and we got her a job in a home design store just on the ground level. That was her first one. She worked her way up to displays and then manager. She was checking out someone she was chatting with who was doing a show, a flip show on HGTV. She goes, "Oh, I'm so excited. Can I come? This is like my dream job." They're like, "Absolutely." So she ends up working with the TV people.
Oh, wow.
And now she has all this on her resume, and she got into this university in her field. And she is a manager of a top furniture design store. Last that I talked to her, as she was in college too.
What a great
It was good.
success.
Yeah, and that was just 6 months with me. And then, just watching her journey, she's doing amazing. Oh,
Wonderful.
and she had stuff that she was a kid, a product of her environment, that, she was a child that was adopted at young age. That's one of the traumas. And her mom had drug and alcohol issues and, their only child syndrome. And there was a lot going on there. Again, childhood trauma is never our fault. We're just a product of that environment. But hopefully along the way, there's someone that can help you. Like I'm thinking of my senior at that high school that needed help from someone that understood trauma, sudden trauma. And we rallied around and quickly, and she graduated with honors and got college scholarships. She didn't need her parents. It's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is our game plan. And we're going to get you scholarships. You're going to stay in school. I was like all over that because I didn't want her to quit and become a victim. Too
Right.
many people just stay the victim. They stay stuck in this negative mindset. And we don't want people stuck there. We want them to feel amazing about themselves and their life and their goals and where they're going at any age. So it's very exciting.
Well, Rihanna, thank you so much for the work that you do.
You're
It's
welcome.
important work, and I know from one coach to another, there's nothing like helping somebody live a better life. Because we all have so much potential inside of us. We just don't always know how to unlock it. And you help people do that and help them get past that trauma and really live the lives that they hope to live. And that's amazing. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for bringing me on and opening the eyes of some folks that, oh my gosh, we can change a lot of this on our own, right? We don't need the medicine. Let's start here first. All the holistic remedies. And I do have a podcast that might be helpful, Lessons in Life and Love, and, articles on my website. So if you need me, though, personally, just reach out and ask to see me.
And I will put all your info in the details. And again, just thank you so much. And I hope that you have a wonderful upcoming summer.
Thank you. You too.
And for our butterflies on the wall who are listening in, and if they like what they hear, don't forget to subscribe to the show. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.